Hello everyone, just wanted to show you a picture of one of my favourite trees around Kirby Thor. I'm out for a walk with the dog and I should have come out a little bit earlier because it was beautiful and sunny about half an hour ago, but now it's started to cloud over. And that makes me think a little bit about the context of today's Bible verse, which is when Jesus says, "Take courage, it's me, don't be afraid." And that verse, if you read the surrounding verses, the story around it is from the story of when Jesus came walking on the water, when his disciples were out on a boat. The background to that is that Jesus had just fed 5,000 people, so done this amazing miracle. But the disciples are worn out. It's been a long day. And so Jesus sends them in the boat across the lake while he dismisses the crowd, and then he goes up to the mountainside to pray. And as he's praying into the early hours of the morning, he can see the boat the disciples are in, or the boats they're in, being buffeted by the waves because they're sailing against the wind. And Jesus, it doesn't say what Jesus thinks, but the next thing we know, Jesus is there and he's walking on the water, and he goes as if to go past them, which I found extraordinary, really. He's not doing it to show off or anything, he's just kind of wants to get to the other side of the lake, or he's just doing it because his father told him to do it. We're not sure. But as he walks past them, the disciples are even more afraid than they already were being buffeted around on this boat, because they think it's a ghost. And Jesus has to call out, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." And I guess the first thing I want to take from that today is the fact that no matter what storm we're in, no matter what difficulty we're going through, no matter how hard we feel we're having to work just to stay afloat, Jesus comes to us. And often we don't recognise him at first, but he is there because he sees us, he cares for us, and he comes to us across the waters, and in a way that often we do not expect. They were not expecting to see Jesus walking on the water that day, and that's why they were confused at first, but eventually Jesus made himself known and they recognised him and they knew that he was with them. And I think that is the message of Advent, and it's a very important message for us. God is with us, Emmanuel, as we sing at Christmas. But then the second part of the story, which isn't in this verse, but if you read the context you'll see it, is when Peter, typical Peter, feet in first, says, "Jesus, if it's really you, call me to get out the boat and I'll walk on the water too." Don't you love Peter? And Jesus just says, "Come." I think he loves Peter's sense of adventure and faith, and Peter steps out of the boat, and at first he can actually walk on the water. It's astonishing. But then it says he noticed the wind and the waves, and he was afraid, and he began to sink, and he cried out to Jesus, "Lord, save me." And Jesus gives him a helping hand back onto the boat and says, "Oh, ye of little faith." But I think Jesus is pleased that Peter took the courage to even step out of the boat. So the second thing, the first thing being that Jesus is with us in the storm, but the second thing is that Jesus actually calls us to step out into the storm, whether that's to do something that will help others, whether that is just to take the next step on our journey, whatever God is calling us to do. It can feel like a scary thing, and yet it will also feel like a great adventure. And Jesus says, "Come." And he invites us to keep our eyes fixed on him and not on the storm. Easier said than done, I know, but he invites us to do that. And sometimes we sink. Sometimes we just can't quite keep that sense of faith in him. And then Jesus offers us his hand and he helps us. And he might say, where was your faith? But he still loves us. And I think, is so encouraged that we took that step of faith out of the boat. So what is Jesus calling you to do as an act of faith in him, of trust, following where he is calling you today? See you soon.